Welcome back, everyone, to the School of Greatness. Very excited about our guests. We have the legendary Jon Bon Jovi in the house. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for being here, my fellow Pisces, arena football lover, and so many other things. You have this incredible docuseries that's out right now as people are watching this. And there's so much about it that I didn't realize about you as a human being and your heart and your vision. I think everyone sees the accolades, the success, the platinum, records that you've sold, and the 4-decade career of hit after hit. But what they really get to watch when they watch this series is your incredible vision for making all this happen and manifesting this into your life and building and creating it for decade after decade, and your beautiful heart. So I want to acknowledge you for your heart, because I feel like that love and that passion is what allowed this to come to fruition, this life you've created and the impact that you've had with your music around the world. My fiance, she's Mexican, and I told her I was having you on today, and she was almost in tears because she said when she was a teenager, she bought a CD of yours, and it was one of the first music that she heard where she started to learn English.
Oh.
Was because of your music.
Right.
So you make impact on so many people's lives in so many different ways that you're not even aware of. So I want to acknowledge you for that, Jon. And there was a moment in, I can't remember if it was episode 1 or 2, because I got to watch the whole thing, where you talk about success and greatness. I don't know if you remember this, but you mention about success and you mention greatness in almost the same sentence. And you give a definition kind of what they both are for you. Since this is the School of Greatness, I would love for you to talk about what the difference is between success and greatness for you.
Well, I honestly can't remember the instance in the film, especially because it's been filmed over the last couple of years. But I guess my reaction to it would be this. Anyone can have success. You could write a jingle that becomes a hit song.
Mm-hmm.
And for 5 minutes, that's called success, and it's fleeting. Or you could strive for greatness, which means you got to do it again and again and again and again and again and again. And you have to work hard because it just doesn't happen. Greatness is something to strive for.
Yeah.
And it is given to nobody. Even the most gifted of musician or athlete or business leader has to work at it in order to, strive to achieve greatness. That's my opinion.
Yeah. When did you feel like you were able to reach greatness in your musical career?
I don't know that I ever felt that way.
Really?
I think that's sort of that chip on your shoulder that keeps you going. I do think that I've gotten quite good at it. I think that given the opportunity physically, I can do it with the best of them at this point. But I think that with every song, let alone every album, it's, can I do it again? Can I do it again? Can I do it again? How can I do it better? I don't think you ever think you've achieved greatness. It's just striving for it.
Did you ever feel like I think it was the 3rd album you guys had that went 14 times platinum or whatever it did, it was like all over the world.
That's one of the biggest selling records ever, yeah. Slippery When Wet, yeah.
Was that the biggest ever of all time? Or?
No. I mean, for us, it was Thriller. It was Like a Virgin. It was Born in the USA. It was one of those.
It was huge. Yeah. It was massive, and it was everywhere. When you have that big of a hit at that young of an age, I think you were like 24, 25 or somewhere around there. How do you, and it surpasses so many other records or accomplishments of almost every other artist. How do you come with the mind of, this isn't my best work and I can keep, reaching this type of success? Or do you think maybe my best work is behind me?
No.
At 25?
No. Absolutely not. If anything, my only regret, and I have very few regrets in my career. One of my few regrets is that I didn't take a little more time just to enjoy it. Because you coulda, shoulda, taken the time to really enjoy it. I think that part of the journey of life is that in your 20s, when you've got that chip on your shoulder and there's all kinds of new surprises around every bend, you don't really sure how to navigate this journey. You look to mentors and, in some form or another to sort of guide you, and they do the best they can, but it doesn't mean that they had the answers either. Anyhow, you're on this journey, and all we could think of, at least all I could think of, was, I got to do this again. I got to make sure that nobody thinks that was a fluke, that we can do this again. We can do it again after that. So it was nose to the grind. And a year after the Slippery Tour concluded, and there was 240 shows and massive success for the band, we were back on the road with the album New Jersey, which had 5 more top 10 singles and another 240, 250 shows. 1 year later.
Just back to back.
Just went right back in the ring.
There's one part in the docuseries where the band, I think you guys are together for, 5 years in a row, it seems like, with very little time off. And there's this beautiful journey that you guys created, this incredible family and these incredible relationships and brotherhood and team mentality. But then too much of a good thing can turn into a bad thing is kind of what you guys talk about in this series. How did you not allow too much tension to actually break this band apart after so many years of success, when there was just more frustration and resentment and egos? How did you keep it together emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, when everyone's got more money than they can think of now, when everyone's got more fame and success and their egos are at an all-time high? How did you keep it together?
Well, everyone has their own unique perspective, and everyone's the hero of their own show, right? So I'm sure anyone in the band or the organization will have told you their point of view, and it may differ from mine. But having been the leader, namesake, whatever you want to call me, I'd always had a certain vision and asked others to follow. Their opinions and their input was very welcomed. But obviously somebody had to be the quarterback. And so I treated this like a team. And I was the quarterback, but I knew I couldn't play without a receiver in the line, okay? So I wasn't ego-driven, but I had to have a plan, stick to the plan, and sink or swim, make the decision. So when I did see that the burnout was happening after those 2 back-to-back records, and this was our first foray into that kind of territory, because it has happened to me other times in my career. In this instance, there was a moment in time where I would, in retrospect, blame agents, managers, lawyers, because they were supposed to be the mentors that said, we believe in you, take your time, get it right. And they allowed us to keep going to the point of burnout. What I wouldn't allow was it to fall apart, because I knew better than to think, wait a minute, nobody physically harmed each other. Nobody stole money. Nobody stole a girlfriend. Nobody was dead. Nobody was, car crashed. Like, this was burnout. So you go back to team, you go back to, what is it that got us here collectively? Let everybody go out and gather their thoughts, get new information, bring it back to the fold, which in turn could make us stronger. And I really, by that point, went out on a limb, because at that point I'd fired the managers, agents, and lawyers and said to the guys, I've got this vision. I believe it still works. And not only do I need you guys to come along, but I'm doing it without the rest of the apparatus now. And they put their faith in that.
There's 3 things that I've gotten to learn about you through this series that's really inspired me, that I feel like you innovated and you led the way with, in terms of anyone that I'm aware of in the kind of the music industry at this high of a level. And I'm going to share these 3 things. One is, during that time where I guess the band was kind of in a lot of friction, at least from the story of the documentary, you brought in I guess a mediator, a therapist, a coach, someone to kind of like say, hey, tell everyone how you feel. Like let's open up all of the emotions, the frustrations, the pains, the joys, and share it all. And this was what, 30 years ago or something,
30
right?
years ago.
30 years ago, when this wasn't a popular thing to do.
35 years ago.
That was like looked down upon 30 years ago. But you said, I'm gonna have the courage to say, we need to bring a coach, an expert, a mediator, a therapist to come in and let everyone express themselves. Would you say that really helped?
Oh, yeah.
Bringing people back together?
Oh, yeah. And boy, was it met with resistance.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You know, I'd heard about these therapies, especially in alcoholism and mental illness, you know, and where you go to a rehab or, you know, and you're dealing with issues. But like I'd said, we didn't have those issues. We had naivete and youth and
ego,
this rocket ship to success that was confusing because we went from being the children of our parents to the parents of our parents and the parents of, we were now these CEOs, you know, we were now these decision makers. We were now these money makers. We were the gravy train, you know. Life changed for everybody in the organization.
In your 20s.
In my 20s. And that's me being I don't want to say a visionary, but a different thinker. I thought differently. I just always thought differently. The way I got a record deal. Nobody gets a record deal the way I got a record deal. I wouldn't knock down a DJ's booth. Right now, we think that there's millions of people who are going to watch this interview, which is nothing but ego. But in truth, it just could be you and I, Louis. And nobody may ever see this or hear this, right? And we don't know. The loneliest man in the music business was a DJ, talking to no one, preaching the gospel of music. And I said, that man loves music more than anyone I know. I'm going to go knock on his window and play him a song. It was the same kind of visions I've had throughout the process here, where I said, self-management. The industry said, you're out of your mind. You're a dead man walking. You're the biggest band in the world right now. You can't fire your big shot manager. I said, why? And I wasn't being egomaniacal. I said, why? Give me a good reason why. There wasn't a good reason why. And from 1991 to 2016, it's a lot of commission checks. I didn't pay anybody, you know. But the band trusted me, and we did it. I did it. I built Bon Jovi Management.
That's the second thing that I was going to talk about.
But the therapist, Lou Cox, he come in, and he had nothing to win or lose. He wasn't on anyone's salaries. He wasn't on the payroll. He wasn't even in the music business.
Wow. What was the one thing that he taught you through that experience about mediation, therapy, communication?
Little silly, you know, elevator bumper stickers like, you know, everyone's the star of their own show. It's 5 different opinions in this story. It's 5 different points of view. But it was about listening in order to learn. It was about, you know, giving the floor to others when necessary. It was about being a shoulder to lean on when somebody, you know, needed that shoulder to lean on. There was a lot of that there was no, it was all based in truths. It was looking into someone's eye and saying, I love you, and meaning it.
Wow.
You know, understanding what the words meant. Not just, oh, we're performing on the stage together. Hey, you dude. I was never a dude. We weren't dude. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in cutting to a deeper place. You know, our music got lumped into a genre of music because of when we came up and the kind of stuff, you know, that I was 21 and 25. I looked like every kid in the mall. That's the way the kids looked in the mall.
Yeah.
So we were thrust into that, but that's not who I was. It was just, we were put into that.
But you were, I mean, again, this is the thing that surprises me. This is what, the late 80s, early 90s, right?
Mid-80s.
Mid-80s.
86, 87, 88.
But when the therapy session...
that's 90, that's 90, 91, yeah.
90, 91.
Yeah.
It's what, 5 to 7 of you guys in a room together.
Yeah.
And you're talking about love? and you're talking about your emotions, and you're talking, I love you, and you're looking in each other's eyes, and you're being vulnerable. When I grew up in the 80s and 90s, you weren't allowed to do that stuff. So I'm saying you innovated this ability to, like, how are all of you able to be so receptive to connect openly, lovingly, vulnerably?
Oh, it wasn't easy. Nobody was receptive to it. I was receptive to it. The guys fought it. And then after a couple of sessions of it, they, had their private time with Lou, and then would come back into group, and then, and we committed to it.
Wow.
We committed to it.
How many sessions did you guys all do
I don't know.
together?
Let's just put it this way. Over the course of time that started in 90, and I was talking to Lou, a year ago.
This is amazing.
So we still, I would still touch base with him.
That's incredible.
Over time. Yeah, we needed him anytime.
How important was it for you to tap into your relationship skills and your emotional skills, over your singing and songwriting skills in order to be successful as a group and as a band?
I just looked at it like a family is always going to have its issues.
Uh-huh.
A team is always going to have their issues. But having been a sports fan, I could see the inner workings of a team and think, I could see that the ego is prohibiting them from winning championships.
Oh, man.
And that a family can't get away from each other, because of blood, but they could have nothing more than a common last name. So there had to be a way to take the strength of a name and the strength of a team and take the best of those things and maximize them. So, if it's based in truth, you can get over ego.
Wow.
It worked for me.
That's incredible. And it sounds like if everyone didn't join in that process, you guys wouldn't be where you are.
Well, somebody could have quit easily. Yeah, it sure would have been an easier way for somebody to quit. But nobody ever quit the band until Richie, in 2013, but that's much later.
Right.
But no, everybody was committed.
It's incredible, man. That's cool. So I love, one of three things that I really think you innovated. The second thing you mentioned it, 1990, you're 29, you're 30 years old, and you say, okay, everyone in the music industry has a manager or has agents and all these different things. I'm going to do it differently.
Yeah.
You hear about that now of like independent artists and starting their own thing and launching their music through the internet. But in 1990, like that never happened. So you really innovated and led this way for artists 30 years before they started doing it. What was the biggest challenge you had to overcome in starting your own management company, navigating the landscape of ticketing and venues and commissioning?
No, what happened was we let go of the old agent, got a new one. Okay, so it wasn't that I didn't have one; we got a different one.
Right.
The manager, God bless him, we're still friendly, but he said it was about him. And we went, no, it's definitely not about you. And then you have to think, like, what does he bring that is so unique?
Uh-huh.
And granted, in that first chapter of my career, I learned a lot. And it was great. But when it was time to move on, I was glad that it was time to move on.
And it was season.
And then the word on the street was, this is career suicide. But I had an incredible representative, and I use that word endearingly. It was way more than a lawyer. He was the godfather to my daughter. He was my father and my best friend and my brother all rolled into one. He never, ever, took advantage of me. He represented, he taught me everything I know about business.
Wow.
And he had frontal lobe dementia. He's passed about 7, 8, 9 years ago now. There's a huge black hole in my life because he's not in it any longer. But he's what made me learn everything that I know now. And in turn, also made me realize we didn't need all that glitz and glamour. We had an amazing right hand in a guy named Paul Corzelius, who was doing the day-to-day in the office. Jerry was doing all the paperwork and I was making all the decisions. We could do this.
Right.
And we did it in a big way. We had the biggest tour in the world 3 times in that period. I had 6 #1 albums. I had, 6 #1 singles. It's like...
Crushing it. Yeah, it's incredible. But how did you have the courage to do that when no one else had done it?
I'd met with a half a dozen managers. I remember at the time, or did, like meeting with managers again and going through that process and just not clicking with any of them. There was none of them that moved me. And I needed somebody that was going to dedicate their life to this the way that we dedicated our lives to it. And I wasn't getting that.
Wow.
So I just, why?
Right.
Do it ourselves.
Wow. It's beautiful. The third thing that I feel like you've really innovated in this industry of, music and rock star and fame and all these different things is you got married, at the peak. I think you were in your late 20s, right? 28, 29 when you got married to a high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know how you're on the road constantly with that much fame, that much success, that much money, and that much options, let's say, and you're able to enter a marriage and have what looks like on the outside, a healthy relationship for decades.
35 years.
That's incredible. So I feel like you've innovated this in a space.
No, I can't take that credit.
Well, I feel like, not many people.
It's fewer and far between. Bono's married as long. Bruce is married almost as long.
Very few. How were you able to have a healthy, successful, thriving marriage and relationship while all the other, ego stuff and fame and just travel and success?
That one was easy. That didn't take a genius. We grew together.
Wow.
We went to high school together.
Yeah.
So we came through this whole roller coaster ride together. So no matter my highs or my lows, she's seen them.
Wow.
And that was integral. She didn't meet me at the pinnacle of my successes or the low points in my career and pick me up out of a gutter somewhere. So we grew up in the same hometown with the same kind of values, same kind of family background, middle class upbringing.
She saw you doing cover band stuff back
then.
Yeah.
In high school, So that one I just was, thank God, fortunate enough to get right the first time, and we held on. It wasn't. We never really had any kind of difficulties.
Really?
Knock wood, it's been 35 years.
What do you think is the key? And I'm not sure if anyone asked you about relationship or marriage, advice ever, but what would you say are the 3 keys to having a long-term successful relationship while thriving at the top of your career as well?
I don't know. The relationship thing, like I said, is mutual respect.
Okay.
Admiration and mutual respect is at the top of this for me. To be a good listener and know it's not all about me. It's about we. It's about both of us. It's about all of us. It's about the family dynamic. So of course I'm always going to be the narcissist lead singer in the house, but there's no platinum records hanging in my house. We left that long time ago in our home. So admiration, mutual admiration society, being a good listener, growing together, just finding her in a way that, like, I get excited in the morning when I see her every single day.
35 years later.
I get excited every single day.
What's the thing you love about her the most?
That she absolutely knows that she loves me, like, with all of her heart.
Wow.
There's no question, there's no doubt, there's not even a glimmer of doubt, there's not even a hint of a glimmer of doubt that this is it. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, I got this one right.
When you're coming off stage in front of 80,000 people and you're the man and you're selling out the biggest tour in history back to back and people are screaming every word and chanting your name, and then you go home and someone's upset at you or they want you to listen to them, how do you get over your ego of being Jon Bon Jovi and saying, I'm going to be a great partner?
It might take a minute to walk it off, when you're on the road for a long time, especially in those younger years when we would be on the road so long that you could carry the lifestyle home. But I haven't even seen that guy in a long time.
Wow.
So it's of no interest to me to even see that guy. It really isn't. Boy, I'm really trying to be honest with you, because even if it was 10 or 15 years ago when we were just still, a little more wild, and I don't mean this in it with like we're subdued now, but it's just in a little more ego-driven way.
Yes.
Even that wasn't a big deal.
Really?
Yeah,
Where did you learn that though? Did your parents teach
our
you this?
upbringing. It's who we are, where we come from, what we did.
Wow.
I was never a big drug guy. I was never the big drinking guy. I was never the big, one thing we learned on this journey, we're doing this interview right now in Los Angeles, California. I had a house out here for years on the beach in Malibu with all the beautiful people. And the first thing after owning that house for 4 or 5 years was, we got to sell this house.
Why?
We got to get the hell out of here. This is not conducive to a great relationship and a great life and a great career and a great grounded who we are, what we are, where we come from.
Wow.
And it was the same thing when we went home and wrote Slippery When Wet. It was like, we are being lumped in with these kind of bands that it's not our thing. And I was just like, I don't want to be a part of this scene. This is not who we are. It's not who I am. I don't give a
Right.
Go back home. Take that picture in the inner sleeve in our driveway, in our cars, with blue jeans and t-shirts on, and sell that Malibu house. And you come out here and everyone's always looking over the shoulder, and they've got that, who's the bigger guy in the room? Who can I go and work? Who can I get something from? I gave that shit up so long ago. I give a about it. I am not impressed. I don't give a It's just that shallow will ruin you. And I know grown men who still are playing that game.
Wow.
And it's just sad.
Yeah.
And shallow.
What do you wish everyone knew about money, fame, and success?
Money doesn't make you smart. It just makes you rich.
Does it make you happy?
Does not make you happy. Now, can it pay for the bills so you can get, the doctor and the insurance and those things? It can. It solves some problems, but absolutely does not make you happy, and it doesn't make you smart. It just makes you wealthy.
What do you wish people knew about fame and accomplishments?
Accomplishments are all fabulous, especially if you worked hard for them, and you have you deserve the opportunity to accept the accolade in and of the moment and enjoy it. And then then you move on from it and don't measure who and what you are based on any kind of championship ring.
Right. That's not your identity.
It is not who you are. It's just what you do. And I too, I live by that credo. It's not who I am. It's just what I do. But I've met many a billionaire who they're not smart because, they're missing out on the good things in life, and on being a part of their community, on touching the lives of their wives and their children, on sleeping on their pillow at night and knowing that they did something good instead of for a buck.
Yeah. And what do you wish people knew about fame?
It's really an interesting question to ask at this juncture, right? It's 2024, and I remember having a conversation with my kids maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago. And them telling me about the internet and ways to make money. And I would say, but you got to write a song to make money. You have to learn how to act. We're talking about
I'm like a skill set,
arts. I'm saying, referencing the art. Or you have to be an athlete and put in the 10,000 hours. I've been proven wrong, obviously, now, right? There's a whole world of people making a buck, and that is very confusing for me and my generation. It's very confusing for me and my generation. We were told that we could go to the moon because President Kennedy told us we could, but we had to go to school to learn how to do the science to get to the moon. We didn't just, snap our fingers and get lucky on the internet one day. So it's a very confusing time. But I don't think anything is a substitute for hard work and dedication and commitment. And, not every day you're going to win, but every day is an opportunity to participate in the process and measure your progress.
Absolutely. Well, you won a lot though, consistently, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's all good.
You won. You've
More
been
than
winning
I've lost.
You've been winning,
More than I've
championship
lost.
after championship. And again, we're talking about Thank You, Good Night, the Bon Jovi story, which is on Hulu at the time of watching this. And I'm curious about, you put in a lot of reps. Speaking of 10,000 hours, when you were a kid, you were doing cover band stuff in Jersey. And there's an amazing scene of like Bruce Springsteen coming up on stage while you were singing his song and him singing it with you. And I can only imagine the like electricity and the excitement in your body as a 16, 17-year-old, seeing someone who is, bigger than you on stage, who is singing with you. And you talk about like you could almost touch it. You're explaining like how you could almost reach out and touch this opportunity. And you just wanted to get closer and closer to that by being in the production studios and being on stages and being around these great artists and talent. I'm curious, where did your creativity come from? How did you, and when you ever felt like blocked creatively or burnt out, how did you get into a creative state?
I was never the great singer, the great guitar player, the great poet. I was the hardest working singer, guitar player, and poet.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of how I became me. If I was going to drown, it was going to be of my own doing, right? So that was integral to the story. Also, what was integral to my personal story was that the drinking age was 18. And it sounds comedic, but it's true. Because at 16, you could slip into a bar.
Wow.
Every 16-year-old thinks he's going to be a pro athlete, a rock and roll star, or an astronaut. So you could go in there and say, I'm going to do this, golly gee, and any little spark was enough to think that you could go to the next level, and the next level, next level. I was then fortunate enough that by 2021, I did write the song and knock on the DJ's booth, and the creative guy in me said how to get a record deal, how to then hire a band. That was unique to the guy that was the harder worker.
Right.
Because you could go down in the Jersey Shore when cover bands were making $3,000 a night in 1979, 80, 81.
It's real money.
We were making $100 in an original band to split between everybody, if you were lucky.
Wow.
If you were lucky, because oftentimes you'd play for free because it was original music. So I never made any money, but I didn't need it because I was 16, 17, 18. I was able to live at home.
Yeah.
And for me, that is a big part of the success was right time, right place, born at a certain time, not privileged, but food on the table, shoes on my feet, and two parents, and they were supportive. All good things.
Yeah.
So all of those things helped.
Yeah, of course. You sound, the way you're explaining yourself, not the best at all these different things, but the hardest worker, you kind of sound like the Tom Brady of rock and roll. It's like, you're like the Tom Brady of rock. You're like not the best at all these things, but you willed yourself to become the best, and championship after championship after championship. I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
It does resonate with me because Tom, Kobe, LeBron, guys of this era, that's kind of the work ethic that I think that I have or always had.
Mm-hmm. We had Kobe, I got to interview Kobe on the show before he passed and just learned so much from him in that short interview. I know you have a relationship with a lot of the great athletes. You owned a sports team at one point, the arena football team, but I think you said you have a relationship with Tom as well, or you've interacted with him over the years.
Sure.
What would you say is the greatest, thing you learned from Tom Brady about how he pursued his craft and how it applied to your craft?
Oh, I've observed Tom closely, and I would like to think that I could call him my friend. I mean, he's been to, my house many times, and, I go to practices and we talk on the phone and stuff. So, here's a guy that's, much younger than me that I'm learning from.
Wow.
Which I really appreciate too, because, 199 in the 6th round and all that kind of stuff, and the audacity to tell Mr. Kraft, I'm the best thing you've ever done, and to have a coach like Belichick, on him and never giving him all the accolades he could have easily, let go to his own head, kept him working. But I think that we carried that, being from New Jersey as a band for the longest time. It was like, even with the accolades, we'll show you. And like Dorothy would say, that I would just will things. And by sheer will, people would follow you if you led by example. And I didn't ask, that this had to be this way, or, my way or the highway, but nobody ever said I'm out of here because of hard work. They just did everything too, and gave everything they had too. Don't think for a moment that Richie and David and Tico and didn't give everything they had, because they did.
Yeah,
they did.
You have this amazing quote in the docuseries that I want to just read back to you that you said, at 25, all I was thinking about was fun and success.
Yeah.
At 30, I got married and looked at success differently. By 40, start to measure if you accomplish what you set out to. By 50, you start to think about a legacy. By 60, as the Chinese proverb says, you are the man you're meant to be. So at 60, when I look back, did I become the man I wanted to be? I'm curious, do you feel like you've become that?
I think it's a work in progress. But I'm not disappointed by anything that I've done. And I've had very few regrets, which I'm really proud to be able to say.
Yeah.
I've had loss, I've had physical ailments, I've had victories, and I've had defeats. But I'm very proud of the legacy thus far.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything to f it up. As I've said, I'm only here to sell the truth.
Yeah.
And it's blemished, but it's real.
If you could go back, to your younger self in your 20s or early 30s, and you could only give yourself 3 pieces of advice, and everything that you know now, you're just going back in time and you're speaking to your younger self, late 20s, early 30s, with everything that you've experienced, what 3 things would you say to that younger Jon?
I think I don't even know that there's 3. I would say take time to enjoy it more. Don't lose faith in yourself, even when you feel like you're maybe down for the last time, and the 8 count is going to 9. And to believe in the power of we. I think that those 3 things is probably what I would say.
If you could jump in time 30 years from now and imagine you would get to accomplish everything and live the life that you want to live for the next 30 years, and just imagine you're in that state of wisdom, what 3 pieces of advice would you give your younger self as you are today from that future self, if that makes sense?
Well, 90 looking back on 60, I guess I would probably say, did you live up to the code that you set, for yourself and for others, and now for the next generation? So with my kids, that if I could see them becoming members of society that were contributing something positively, then that will have been a victory. Because it's not about fame or fortune or anything else that goes with it. I think it goes back to, did you leave something behind worthy of having been here.
Wow.
So that to me right now, as I sit here and I think about where my kids are because they're all grown, I'm not thinking about me anymore. I sort of feel like I've achieved the highest highs. What I hope with this record and this film is that it's going to say, hey, good mile marker, the 40th. And by the way, this new album's pretty darn good. But it's not going to be slippery when wet again. You know, I'm 62 years old. It's time for the next generation to have their slippery when wet. But I would like to think that my next slippery when wet could be, you know, did my kids make any kind of contributions to the world?
Wow.
That would be neat.
That's beautiful. What is being a father taught you about life?
You don't know man, from the minute that I remember, you know, our first child was our daughter, and I didn't have sisters, let alone a baby. When the door closed on that first night, we were like, there's no owner's manual that comes with this. You're like, wow. So you figure it all out. Okay, step at a time, and you get it, and you work hard at it. And with every child, and then with every chapter of every child, the playbook changed.
Wow.
And with their girls to boys, and then toddlers to teens, and then teens to adults, and adults getting married, nobody told me about these chapters in the book. And I'm like, you would think that by now somebody would inform me about these chapters. But no one had told me about these chapters, and they're all different. So, you know, we're just trying to navigate it. And now all my friends that are my age go, oh yeah. Didn't we tell you? I'm like, F you, man. No, you didn't tell me.
What is a lyric from one of your songs that you've written that really speaks to you of your season of life right now?
Oh my God. You're catching me off guard. I'm not usually good at this, but there's a song on the new album. It's called Hollow Man. And it says, what do you sing when the song's been sung? Who do you fight when the war is won? What do you write when your book is done?
Wow.
What do you sing when the song's been sung? Here I am, the hollow man, telling stories about the promise of a promised land. I feel like a cheap bouquet of flowers in a one-night stand. With my heart in my hand, I am the hollow man. And it just, it's saying I'm an empty vessel. I'm here looking up at the sky and saying, okay, Lord, what's next?
Wow.
You know, and so that's just a song on the new.
That's on the new album. That comes out
June 7th.
June 7th. Wow.
Yeah, Hollow Man's a story of me today.
Did you find an answer for that?
No, I'm living it. Every day is an opportunity to write a song, but I don't often, you know, take every day and turn it on. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I at times have to turn it off and just acknowledge that it'll be there next time I want to turn the faucet on. But because it becomes so overwhelming, if you run the course of a cycle, like with the joy that I've found with this record, it was time to say, okay, it's being repetitive. It's time to shut off the faucet. Okay, now here's a new album. It's called Forever. These lessons won't be manifest. They're manifested, but they won't be fully learned for the next 2 years.
Wow.
And then I'll look back on them. And then I'll know where I was.
That's some art for you. You know, 4 decades plus of doing music, you've had to kind of like reinvent your identity almost every decade or every couple of albums or every few years, while keeping, you know, your roots, but innovating, you know, music and things like that. But recently you went through surgery on your vocal cords, and it's throughout the documentary series when people can watch it. And, you know, I can relate to this in my own way of being an athlete. And,
right, you can.
And getting injured.
Right.
And and my whole identity, my entire life being tied into
good. Let's talk about this.
Being talented and being valuable and being able to use my skill sets to go make something happen of my dreams and my vision, right? But then when I got injured, playing in a sport that you were an owner of another team, playing arena football, that vision of my identity and my future became shattered literally and emotionally and spiritually. And it was a year and a half of recovery and trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? Who am I of this next season of life? What is my next chapter? What is my next song? What is my next play if I'm not able to play that game anymore?
Mm-hmm.
In your journey of, your vocal cords not being the exact same in your 20s at 60, how have you mentally and emotionally dealt with the identity shifts and changes as an artist and as a man?
You and I were talking off camera about that period between when you stopped playing the game that you loved and determining that you were going to be here, which probably was not in the cards.
Was not.
In 2008.
Was not.
You never dreamt of this. But I'm going to guesstimate that you're pretty satisfied with where you are right now.
Very satisfied.
So look at that.
And it needed to happen in order for me to get on this trajectory.
The obstacle is the way, right?
Exactly.
And I get that. I trust there was a period of mourning for you.
Big time.
Right?
Big time.
Because from the time you were 8 until you were 20.
Yeah. 23, 24,
4, you were identified by the game.
Yes.
And then there comes that mourning and confusion. I haven't had to quit doing what I'm doing, nor would I ever have to stop writing a song or making a record. But if I chose not to go out and tour again because I couldn't be at that level I am accustomed to performing at, I do wonder how I'll behave.
Interesting.
But I haven't come to that crossroad.
I hope you don't have to.
I hope I don't have to either. If God forbid that is my future, the one thing I will know is I've exhausted every possible way back onto the playing field at the level that I'm accustomed to playing at. So when Kobe had the injury, when Tommy had the injury, when Michael Strahan ripped his pec off of his chest, when every athlete goes through this, the question is, okay, I can get back on the playing field. Can I play in the Super Bowl? Can I win
at the level
again?
of what I'm capable of, yeah.
And I don't know the answer. So I'm a work in progress.
How is that uncertainty? How are you dealing with that right now?
It's better than it was because I'm a really analytical guy when it comes down to it, and I look at pictures of the chords and the progress, and I'm optimistic about it.
Of your actual
Yeah, I see them all the time.
So you see there's improvement.
Yeah. But if it's not up to speed, let's say this, and I hate to even put it out in the world.
Yeah.
That I don't tour. I could promise you, Louis, that I will be able to say, I did do it at the highest level.
Wow.
For the longest time. And I'm good with that. Because one thing that I know that I've told myself since I was 25 was I will never be on the Where Are They Now tour, playing in the train station at the, diner and the buffet on Friday evening. It's just not going to happen. So I will be more than okay with that aspect.
You'd be at peace if you don't get to tour again.
If I don't have the opportunity, which I really would enjoy the opportunity, I'll live with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm still capable of writing a record. I'm still capable of recording a record.
That's cool.
I just need to be able to do 2.5 hours a night, 4 nights a week. And if God forbid that doesn't happen, I can absolutely positively guarantee you will never see me giving 50%. That's out of the question.
Wow. Well, I hope the world gets to see you perform on stage again. And if you're coming to LA, I got to go. So I'm going to find a way to get there for sure and check it out. I've only got about 5 more minutes with you to be respectful of your time. And I want people to watch this docuseries. It's called Thank You, Good Night, the Bon Jovi story. It's on Hulu. So make sure you guys go watch this. It's fascinating. If you love art, if you love music, if you love Jon, if you love just creativity, ups and downs of success stories, you're going to love this series. So make sure you watch this. And if you really want to study your mind and the vision that you had and the drive that you had to will your vision into existence, it is a beautiful story. So make sure you watch this. Even if you don't like music, you'll be inspired by this story and your vision of bringing your heart and putting it on for the world to see. So I really am inspired by that. You got the new album as well, June 7th, that people can get. What's the best place for them to get that?
It's streamed everywhere these days. Press a button.
Okay.
So any
so listen anywhere, Spotify,
and Amazon,
everywhere.
and everybody's
Okay,
going to have it.
Awesome. Before I ask the final couple questions, what else can we do to be of service to you today?
I don't know, unless you have a magical mystery cure for the high C's of the vocal cords.
One of the things that you do, which I think is really cool as well, is you're all about service. You've got a charitable foundation as well. You want to give back. So many things you'll see in the docuseries about you wanting to be of service with your music, with your platform, with your fame, and I think that's really cool. So people can learn more about that as well. This question, final two questions. This one is called the 3 truths. So I've already asked you a couple hypothetical questions, but this is another one for you. Imagine you do get to live as long as you want to live. You get to keep performing as long as you want to perform. You get to do it all. You see your kids grow up even more, all the different things that happen in life. But for whatever reason, it's your last day on earth, many years away. Live as long as you want. And in this hypothetical scenario, you have to take all of your music with you. You have to take all of your writing with you. This conversation is no longer here. Any piece of content you've put out into this world, it goes with you. It's a hypothetical scenario.
It goes with you.
It goes with you, or it's just not.
You take it with you?
You take it with you, or it's not in this world. It goes somewhere else. We don't have access to it.
Okay.
Hypothetical.
Okay.
So we don't get to hear your music anymore.
Okay.
But on this last day, you get to leave behind 3 truths. And that's what we do get to keep from you, are these 3 lessons. They could be lyrics from a song. It could be something on your heart right now. It could be something simple, something, whatever it might be. But if it's the last day and you only get to share 3 lessons with the world, 3 truths, what would those 3 truths be for you?
Wow. Live your truths without compromise. Be of service. And take the time to see the world around you, to be one with the world around you. See the clouds in the sky, see that the sun is shining, see that the waves are crashing, see that the traffic is rolling by. Just take the time to smell the roses. Yeah, that's really important. Too many of us run through life missing every sign of what was there for your pleasure. And so many of us were all self-absorbed and consumed and didn't serve anything other than self. And so many of us lived a false life of what others wanted us to do and be. And I think that all of those things are just a waste of this moment in time that we were all given here.
Well, before I ask the final question, Jon, I would acknowledge you again for being of service to humanity through your talent, your art, and your heart. And, I love what you just said about not making it all about self, but also making it about service. And I think that's a beautiful life. So I want to acknowledge you for speaking that and sharing that with people, because I think a lot of people today just want to be successful and be famous and make it about them. So I think it's really cool that you're making it about service, and that's one of your truths. my final question for you, Jon, you answered this a little bit earlier, but I'd love to hear if it's evolved. What is your definition of greatness?
Boy, with my brain spinning in my head. What is my definition of greatness? Greatness is being comfortable in your own skin. Greatness is leaving something that is worthy behind.
Yeah.
I think I'll just leave it there.
Jon, thanks so much for being here, man. Appreciate it, man.
This was a joy.
I think it's being concerned what other people think, and a feeling of that the people who make great things are somehow special and that they're not special. And that's just not true. Everyone has the capability to make great things.